This is Volusia Today, a public information radio program brought to you by the County of Volusia.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Volusia Today. I'm Clayton Jackson with the county's Community Information Division. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, Dave Hunt. Thank you so much for tuning in. Volusia Today is made possible by our sponsors, the Daytona Beach International Airport, the Ocean Center, Volusia Recycles, and Votran Public Transportation. Dave, how are things going this morning?
Pretty good. Summer's winding down, getting ready for school. I think this is the last week of the tax-free holiday, so this weekend's going to include some school shopping.
So are you all prepared? You got the supplies yet?
We got the supplies. Meet the Teacher, I think, is next Friday,
Yep.
so I'm sure there'll be another list of supplies. We
always.
started a little earlier this year, so I feel pretty confident going into the school year for sure.
Awesome. Great. And, what's the outlook on the weather for the beach this weekend?
We're expecting calm waves. It's looking like there might be some thunderstorms, and those storms roll in quick, and the lightning comes with those storms this time of year, so you want to be cognizant of that. If you hear thunder at all, get off the beach, get indoors. And rip currents are always a threat. No matter how calm the waves may look or how pristine the water may look, your best bet's to always swim in front of those staff lifeguard towers for sure.
And what else do our listeners need to do?
Oh, download the Volusia Beaches app. And there's also some beach live cams on YouTube as well, on the Volusia Beaches YouTube. So you can get a nice look before you even head down there, see how packed it is. Maybe if you're a surfer, check the waves. There's a lot of resources, but for sure, if you're going to only do one thing, download the Volusia Beaches app. Awesome
information. And then we also want to remind our listeners out there that today is the last day for everyone to take the Unmet Needs Survey regarding the Transform 386 initiative. So please go to transform386.org and take that survey.
Why? Why should people take that survey? Just real quick in a nutshell, 30-second spiel on why people should take the survey.
Well, it is part of the $328.9 million grant that the county received through HUD to administer the Community Development Block Grant / disaster recovery. And that input, they've been doing a lot of community meetings, and through the survey, the Office of Recovery and Resiliency will be taking all this data and information that has been received and compiling it, and then developing an action plan, which will then be posted and available to our residents to review, provide comments, and then there will also be a public hearing that will take place probably sometime in August. So we want to make sure our listeners to watch our Facebook, watch our other social media outlets. We're going to be putting notices out there. So when that action plan is available and the public hearing is scheduled, we're going to make sure to let everybody know.
So the input is basically a starting phase as to where they're going to be allocating the money. Is that how it goes?
Yes.
So it could affect your community. So you might,
what projects are needed
in your community specifically, right? Because it's countywide.
Yes, okay. It is countywide. It's not specific to any city. It is countywide, Volusia County.
Okay.
So if you live in Volusia County and you haven't taken that survey yet, you still have a few hours to do so. So we strongly encourage you to do that. All right. So today, summer break's coming to an end, as Dave said. So people are trying to get their last-minute trips to the springs and to the beach. This summer's been quite busy for them. There have actually been a few manatee rescues that you may have been seeing in the news lately. And with us today, we have Volusia County Manatee Protection Program Manager Debbie Wright, and from the Manatee Club, Director of Multimedia and Manatee Research Associate Cora Berchem. How are you guys doing today?
Good.
Great.
Great to be here.
Great. So Cora, let's start with you. What's going on with the manatees in the Blue Spring this time of year?
Yeah, so this time of year, we definitely see less manatees in the spring than you would expect in the wintertime. They obviously come there in the winter in the hundreds for the warm water. But we've had quite a few manatee sightings at Blue Spring this year as well, including a very large mating herd in May. And quite a few mother-calf pairs and, manatees just kind of stopping by, checking out the spring, sometimes checking out the swimmers. Definitely not the large numbers as in the wintertime, but definitely some sightings.
Tell us a little bit about just the Save the Manatee Club in general. What do y'all do on a daily basis? How do y'all assist manatees? Just tell us a little bit, a quick overview of what the Save the Manatee Club is.
Yeah, absolutely. We're a 501c3, have been around for a little over 40 years, and we really focus on public outreach and education, legal advocacy for manatees, and then we're also part of the Manatee Rescue and Rehabilitation Partnership. So on a daily basis, we do a lot of community outreach, presentations, anything in that realm, and then also research at Blue Spring, mostly in the wintertime, and helping with any rescues or releases when necessary.
And do you have like boots on the ground at Blue Springs to like give people information as well, or how does that work?
Yeah, actually, so we do have a program that we co-manage with Debbie's group from Volusia County and the state park, as well as the Clearwater Marine Aquarium Research Institute. And we have a manatee observer program out there where we actually have trained volunteers out there every day, and they're keeping an eye on the manatees and also educating people as they're getting in the water with manatees to try to prevent that harassment.
Well, because that harassment's something, right? Because it's a very unique location where it's beautiful crystal clear water and you're snorkeling, and all of a sudden you look over and there's a manatee swimming right next to you.
So, whoa.
And for a majority of the people, they look so lovable and so kind, and they almost look at you like, hey, come on over here and pet me. But it's not a good idea, right?
No, that is not a good idea at all. That is actually against the law. Manatees are very friendly. They're extremely curious, but we really do need to remember that they're wild animals and to give them space. So the best thing is really to observe them from a distance. Try to stay at least 2 kayak lengths away from them. If you're kayaking or if you're swimming, try to stay at least 20 feet away from them. Give them space, look at them, and if they're curious, they may come up to you, but you should not encourage that kind of interaction with them.
And everybody might not know, and if you are a resident and you do know this, I mean, share the message as nice as you can. But yeah, if you know and you see somebody doing that, please help spread the word and the message, because the more people who are leaving them alone, the better off it is for the manatees for sure. Debbie, tell us about the Manatee Protection Program. What does that encompass? What does that look like? What is the Manatee Protection Program?
The Manatee Protection Program is kind of made up of a bunch of different parts. Under that program, we have things like the monofilament recovery and recycling program, the Manatee Watch program, our Volusia County Marine Mammal Stranding Team, and then we do a bunch of outreach and education throughout the county, and just a whole bunch of different projects that are always going on. I never know what my day is going to look like.
Well, let's unpack that a little bit. What the Marine Mammal Stranding Team, what does that look like?
So we, here in the county, we work alongside of FWC when it comes to manatees, or hubs when it comes to cetaceans. So whenever we get a marine mammal that's either sick, injured, or orphaned here in the county, our team goes out first, kind of like first responders to help out the other branches. We assess the situation, do what we can to keep the animal stable until FWC can get there with their transfer trucks if it needs to go to rehab, or with the rescue boat if it's out in the water. Same thing with hubs. We're kind of there to keep an eye on the animal and try to do a little bit of crowd control in case people are trying to harass the animals until we get that backup.
So is there any type of special equipment that you all have to utilize to rescue these animals? Because they're not just like a dog you could pick up and put in your car and take to the vet. Is there any type of special equipment?
So one of the key things that we use is really big stretchers that will work together to get the animal onto, and then we lift the animal with as many people as we can get in there, because we're talking about, when it comes to manatees, at least 1,000-pound animal, so it's kind of all hands on deck. But we get them onto the stretcher, and then we'll use the stretcher to move them into the transfer trucks, which have a lift gate on the back that lifts it up, and then we bring them into the truck, and that transport truck will take them to a rehab facility. Or we have specialized rescue boats with big nets on the back of them if the animal's in the water, and those nets will go out, circle around the animal, and then we'll pull the animal onto the boat.
So there are boats and trucks that are dedicated for this type of rescue. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. But those are our main things that we use for rescues. And even the stretchers used during releases as well. We have to have the animal on the stretcher to get it back into the water.
And you all are involved. I think one of the most notable ones was when that killer whale came up on our shore. You all were involved in that as well. But, I mean, how often are these marine mammal strandings happen? And this time of the year, where are you seeing most of those calls? Because you're on call 24/7. Somebody from your team is on call 24/7, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So yeah, when the orca stranded up there in Flagler, it was very rare for this area. But most of the time around here, we get dolphins and manatees, or bottlenose dolphins are the most common, manatees, and the occasional pygmy sperm whale. Things like that are our most common ones. This time of year, we have, especially this summer and spring, we've been getting so many manatee mating herd calls. Those can happen anywhere in the waterways, but a lot of the times they'll go into shallower waters to mate. And when that's happening, it's one female and a bunch of males that are competing for that female. So she'll get exhausted and strand herself on purpose just to rest. So we just ask, if ever you're on the beach or, over in the Halifax or wherever you are, if you see a manatee and it's onshore or in the shallow waters, just call FWC and let them know what you're seeing. And don't ever try to push them back, because there's probably a reason why they're in that spot. And if, for example, if it is a female trying to rest from that mating herd, putting her back in the water is kind of the worst thing for her, because she doesn't get the rest that she needed. And a lot of the times the males are still waiting for her out there, so she's definitely not going to get the rest that she needs.
So Dave and I, if we're just walking along somewhere and we see a stranded manatee, we shouldn't try to tag team and push it back in the water?
Yeah, absolutely not. If we have a marine mammal and it's onshore, no matter what type of marine mammal it is, that's not typically where they're supposed to be, so there's probably a reason why they're there. So the best thing for them is to get our rescue groups out there so that we can assess the situation and sometimes get a veterinarian involved to really see what's going on. And 9 out of 10 times the animal has to go to a rehab facility. However, mating herds, usually she just needs rest, and we just want to leave her alone and wait for her to work her way back into the waterways.
And manatee rescues is not something new just in the last year or two. Mm-hmm. It's been going on for a while. Have either of you noticed any type of advancements or changes in the way that the teams go about rescuing these animals?
Well, I think over the years, more partners have come on board. It's really, people need to understand that it's really, a group effort, like a partner effort. So it's not just FWC or just Save the Manatee or just Volusia County. We really all work together. And I think over the years, more partners have come on board and they're getting trained. And I think in terms of rescue, Debbie may know some more about that, but I think sort of the methods of how to do it have stayed the same. But I also feel because we've done more in terms of public outreach, we get a lot more calls from the public knowing what to look for and knowing who to call, and how to look out for a distressed manatee so that the rescuers can actually get there to get the animal.
So the knowledge has increased.
I definitely so, yeah.
I think
there
so.
we go.
Yeah. Techniques stayed the same, knowledge increasing though, and that outreach is definitely, that's why we're really grateful to have these opportunities to kind of spread that information. Hopefully one person tells the next. And
speaking of information, and while we're on the topic of if maybe you spot a stranded marine mammal, what's the number to call? What are the resources, websites to visit to learn more?
Yep, just calling the FWC hotline, which is 1-888-404-3922. And that's for any wildlife. You can call in that number, and the dispatch will call the branch that it needs to go out to.
How about if people want to learn more? What's the website, social media channels?
You could either go to volusia.org/manatees with the S at the end, or even FWC's website has a ton of information, which is myfwc.com/manatee with no S.
All right,
and
nice.
Cora.
And Cora, yeah.
Cora's, of course.
Yeah, and Save the Manatee Club, we have our website, savethemanatee.org. We're also very active on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So we try to post a lot of information out there to let people know in a format where people can learn. So, our website, as well as the ones that Debbie mentioned, I think are probably the best to go if you want more information or learn about how to spot a manatee or how to help.
And Save the Manatee Club also has the live cams from the springs, and those are kind of fun to watch and actually get to see the manatees and how they move, how they use their pectoral flippers to move around, and it's kind of fun to watch.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we have a couple of resources too. If you're a boater or if you live on a waterway, we have some signs that you can order or some brochures, waterway cards, decals with the FWC number on them that Debbie just mentioned. So that's savethemanatee.org/resources. So you can get all these resources there, and they're all free, so you can order them and get them.
Tell us about that a little bit. The boats and the manatees. Tell us how that works. The slow speed zone. Why it's important to go slow in the slow speed zones. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so manatees and boats have always been sort of an issue. Manatees are very slow moving, so they have a really hard time getting out of the way of fast moving boats. Unfortunately, this year we have already lost over 60 manatees due to watercraft collisions, and unfortunately Volusia County, the county that we're in here right now, has the highest number of that. And especially what we're seeing is in the Mosquito Lagoon, some of the seagrass has come back, which is a really good thing, but that also brings more manatees into the area. So boaters have to be specifically careful in that area, boating around like any kind of shallow grass beds or, where manatees are, because these collisions unfortunately happen very often. And in June, me and Debbie's team, we were both involved on a rescue that was happening there of a manatee that had actually gotten hit in the head by a boat and was in the shallows and, had to be rescued. At the same time, though, I kind of also want to give some credit to those boaters who are careful and who are reporting these manatees, because they can really be the manatees' biggest advocates. They're out there, they're seeing things, and we have a lot of boaters that stay with these animals until our rescue groups can get there.
Yeah, and it's on accident. It's on accident.
Mm-hmm. Oftentimes it really is, absolutely, yeah.
All right, well, with that, we're going to take our first commercial break. Stay with us, and we'll be back with more Volusia Today.
Subscribe to the Volusia County YouTube channel.
And hit the bell icon to know what's happening in your hometown.
There are so many great places to explore.
And things to learn.
With over 1,000 videos available right now, the channel offers something for everyone.
Let's go!
Did you know we have countless features showcasing history, nature, wildlife, and recreation? Subscribe and hit the bell icon.
Or that we live stream important county meetings and workshops where leaders make decisions that can impact our everyday lives. Did you subscribe yet?
Or that we record our weekly radio show, Volusia Today, where we interview staff from the different divisions and departments across our great county, and they discuss the nitty-gritty of their field and expertise.
Go ahead, subscribe.
But that's not it. There's more. Subscribe and hit the bell icon and fully explore.
Score!
We're back, and we are talking manatees. So we left, and we were talking about boats and manatees and how they can kind of coexist. And it can be frustrating as a boater, the slow speed zones, obviously, but they're there for a reason. And the worst possible case would be hitting a manatee and injuring a manatee. And a lot of people probably don't see that, but you all see that every day. Or not every day, but you see that a lot. 60 this year in Volusia County is a pretty high number. I mean,
that's the state of Florida.
Oh, the state 60 in the state of Florida. That's still a high number for sure.
Nine for Volusia County.
Okay.
But that's the highest out of all the counties in the state. So, unfortunately, but we have a lot of boaters in our area and a lot of manatees in our area. So we can see that correlation why we would be so high. But there are things that you can do as a boater to try to prevent that from happening. Wearing polarized sunglasses so that you can see into the water a little bit better. Like Cora said earlier, avoiding the shallow areas where our seagrasses are, because that's where our manatees are going to be feeding. Making sure that if you're in a zone where you're supposed to be idle or a slow speed zone, those manatee zones, making sure to obey those signs. Those are there for a reason. We did a lot of research, or FWC did a lot of research before putting those signs out. Those are the more popular areas for the manatees, and that's why those signs are there. Did I miss anything there, Cora? Footprints. Yeah. Look for the manatee footprints in the water or the noses coming up, because that's pretty much going to be all that you can see.
I didn't know manatees have feet. What does the footprint look like?
I was wondering the same thing.
So we call them footprints because basically when they're swimming, they're pretty close to the surface of the water. So their tails are just making a half circle kind of ripple on the water pattern as they swim. So just look for that manatee footprint.
And what type of injuries do you see quite often with manatees? Like, just tell us a bit about those.
Other than boat strikes, we have a lot of entanglements, fishing line entanglements, crab trap entanglements. We are kind of slowing down from a manatee unusual mortality event where we had a starvation situation happening. But on a typical year when we're not in the middle of that unusual event, it's the boat strikes and the entanglements that are probably the worst.
Did you say boat strikes are probably the most common injuries, or entanglements? Or a combination of both?
It's probably a combination of both. I mean, boat strikes are definitely a biggie for manatees, and it's really important to understand too that it's kind of a two-pronged thing. So the propeller can injure the manatees, directly, and a lot of the wounds that you're seeing are from propeller injuries. But at the same time, a fast-speeding boat hitting a manatee, that impact trauma is oftentimes what actually kills a manatee. So 60% of watercraft fatalities are caused by that impact, that blunt force trauma on a manatee, and you may not necessarily see very large external injuries, but the insides can be, pretty severely affected. I mean, manatees have these really heavy rib bones, and they're kind of lying right over the lungs. But if they break a rib bone, it can potentially puncture a lung. So if you see a manatee like floating high on the surface or having trouble breathing, that can be a lung injury. So definitely boat strikes are an issue, entanglements for sure. And then, in the wintertime, we're dealing with cold stress, which obviously right now we're not. It's the middle of the summer. And, harmful algae blooms like red tide, which is not necessarily like something in Volusia County we have to worry about, but it's more so in Southwest Florida. But that's a problem for manatees too.
All right, so if I was on my boat and I did hit a manatee, what should I mean? Obviously I need to call FWC, but am I required to stay there like on site? Like if it's a traffic incident, like tell us like if a boater accidentally strikes a manatee, what should be the steps they take?
Just calling FWC, and they'll call, or as soon as the hotline notifies the nearest branch, the FWC will call the boater back most of the time to try to get some more information. Are you still with the animal? Because a lot of people won't stay there. They'll just call it in. And that's fine. At least you made that call.
Just give them location and everything.
But if you want to stay with the animal, and that would be super helpful as well, so that when FWC calls, you can give the new location wherever it's at. And a lot of people will, they'll stay with it until we can get our team out there to take over for them. Some of them have even stayed to watch the rescue. So, it just all depends on what that person is doing and whether or not they can. But we at least appreciate that call.
And you said a couple things about the entanglement. So we have a lot of boaters in Volusia County. We've got beautiful waterways, springs, and the river and the ocean where manatees all travel. But we also have a lot of fishermen. And monofilament is a big problem. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we could all do something about as well. And it could be as simple as just making sure your knots are tied good, making sure you're using the right tackle, all of that stuff up front. But then on top of that, there's some other things people can do, correct?
Yeah, we have in Volusia County, we partnered with FWC. We have the monofilament recovery and recycling program. So whenever you see those PVC pipes that are out by the fishing docks and fishing piers, those are there so that you can take any unwanted or used fishing line and put them into those recycling bins. We have volunteers that adopt each of those bins, and they'll go out and empty them, and they collect that fishing line, separate all the other stuff that ends up in those bins. Mm-hmm. So if you see those bins, they're not garbage cans.
Right. And there's a lot of those.
You're making it really hard on our volunteers if you're putting other things in there.
Right.
But so they'll take that fishing line, clean it up, and send it off to a company called Berchem, and they actually recycle that fishing line. So that's one thing that you can do as a citizen. Even if you want to volunteer for that program, you can. And then also with the county, we go out with a specialized group of divers, and we try to clean up the Ponce Inlet Jetty where that's a very popular fishing spot. We go out every spring and summer, probably get about 10 dives in throughout the season, pull up at least 1,000 pounds each season of just fishing line and leads and other marine debris from off of the jetty rocks and everything. So we're trying.
All right, before we go to our last commercial break, what are some myths or general misconceptions people may have about manatees?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think one of the main things is, people think that they're these huge, heavy animals and that they have a lot of blubber or fat, which is really not the case. They have very heavy bones and very large intestines, which makes up their weight, which is why in the wintertime they have to come to these warm water sources because they can just not stay warm. That's probably one of the main ones.
I didn't know that.
That, and also they think that they can't be hurt by manatees because they're these gentle giants, but you have to keep in mind they are quite large, and especially in mating herd season, if you're too close to one of those, they have one thing on their mind and one thing only. So if you get hit by one of those tails, it could definitely break a bone.
It's not going to feel good.
So unintentionally they can definitely hurt you. So keeping your distance and obeying those laws is definitely important.
And if you spook them, they can move.
Oh yeah,
They move
they can
for
get up to
sure.
20 miles per hour in
Oh,
short
wow.
bursts. So you don't want to be around when that happens.
Right.
All right, with that, we're going to take our last commercial break. Stay with us for more Volusia Today.
Subscribe to the Volusia County YouTube channel.
And hit the bell icon to know what's happening in your hometown.
There are so many great places to explore.
And things to learn.
With over 1,000 videos available right now, the channel offers something for everyone.
Let's go!
Did you know we have countless features showcasing history, nature, wildlife, and recreation? Subscribe and hit the bell icon.
Or that we live stream important county meetings and workshops where leaders make decisions that can impact our everyday lives. Did you subscribe yet?
Or that we record our weekly radio show, Volusia Today, where we interview staff from the different divisions and departments across our great county, and they discuss the nitty-gritty of their field and expertise.
Go ahead, subscribe.
But that's not it. There's more. Subscribe and hit the bell icon and fully explore.
Score!
We're back with Volusia Today. So before we conclude today's show, I just have to ask each of you, what inspired you to get involved with rescuing manatees and their conservation efforts?
Well, I guess for me, it was never really a path I had planned on. I was working in film and television before I moved to Florida. I had no idea what a manatee even was until about 12 years ago. And I guess I just fell in love with them when I saw them. I wanted to do something where I could make a difference, or felt like I could make a difference, and most of the time that's the case, but it's obviously very hard work, and I don't get to spend the holidays with my family. Sometimes I'm out there, in the cold or in the heat or whatever, but it just, making a difference for these animals for me.
For me, I always knew that I wanted to work with marine mammals. I wasn't really sure in what aspect, but after college, I kind of dabbled in a couple different things, but working in rehab facilities and being able to volunteer on stranding teams, that's where I realized that that's where I wanted to go, because I liked being able to try to save the ones that needed saving.
And ladies, thank you all so much for the amazing work you're doing. Wildlife is so essential, important to, not just Florida, but everywhere. So just keep that in mind, listeners, protect our manatees. With that, we're going to wrap up today's show. Have a wonderful day in Volusia County.
If you have a comment about Volusia Today, or if there is a topic you would like to hear featured, please contact Volusia County Community Information at 1-866-345-0345.